Brave and Her podcast, where we inspire, empower, and motivate by sharing our stories of bravery. I strongly believe that by sharing our stories, we open ourselves to healing, but also serve to give hope and inspiration to those who are dealing with a tough situation. We will talk about all topics under the sun. Now let's hear your stories of bravery. Hey girl, thank you for being here today. In this episode, I have Kimberly Cook. She is the owner of Born in a Barn Boutique. Hi, Kimberly. How are you?
Hello. Good. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for being brave and sharing your experience. So we're gonna talk about how you worked for a company for 20 years and then you decided to make a change in your life and leave that job after 20 years and pursue your passion and open your own business. But before we get into that, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Kimberly Cook. I'm owner of Born in a Barn Boutique. I refinish furniture. I teach people how to do this, how to take their hobby into a business. So I teach technique. I teach all the things how to get started because it's extremely overwhelming. I have a YouTube channel where I have over 140 video tutorials. So that's a little bit about me as far as and my business. And then as we roll through, you'll get to know more about me in the podcast.
Awesome. And I did take a look of like on your Instagram, and the furniture is like really nice.
Thank you.
You show the process too, which is pretty cool. So let's just start with you leaving your career after 20 years. First of all, what industry were you in? And then, at what point in your career did you realize, okay, this is no longer for me. I want to, pursue my own business, which was in your case, or you knew that there had to be a change in your life?
Absolutely. So I was very fortunate. What I did before, I was self-employed for 20 years. I worked with my dad. So I had a really great experience. But it was a completely different, non-creative, very analytical type job. I worked as a real estate appraiser and we were independent and we did work for insurance companies mostly. And so there was a lot of travel because we worked all throughout Northern California up into, the different state borders. So we had quite the territory. So there was a lot of in the field or on the road for 20 years. I did always have a home base where I worked from home. I have a son who's 20. And so it allowed me to have the ability to be involved, be the mom at school and do all the things because I could set my own schedule. So it was a wonderful career to have, but it wasn't something I was passionate about. I was passionate that I got to work with my dad and, it was a family business. I was passionate that it allowed me to exercise being a mom, and people didn't even think I worked because I was always there. I showed up. And so I had that luxury. So it was a fantastic 20 years, but in the same regard, it was not something, like I said, that I was passionate about. And so I started about 7 years ago is when I started doing furniture. And right before that, I had done a makeover in our kitchen. I had painted all of our kitchen cabinets, and it was a huge undertaking for someone who I had painted walls, but I didn't really know what I was doing. It was quite the project. It taught me a lot. And, I was doing this in between working full time. And then I kind of got the bug and I thought, well, how about if I work smaller scale? I was looking for a hobby. We have 3 children together, my husband and I, and they're all close in age, and they were kind of getting less dependent at that time, obviously, as they grow. And so I was looking for something to put my time into. And so I thought, okay, done the kitchen, don't want to do that again. I'm going to buy a piece of furniture, I'm going to paint it, and I'm going to sell it. And so I did. And so I bought my very first piece of furniture almost 7 years ago. I paid $40 for it. It was an antique piece. I got a great deal. I painted it. I put it up for sale. And within 2 days, it was sold. Somebody drove round trip about 4 hours to come get it. I knew in hindsight I had sold it too cheap, but it was all part of the learning experience. So
Right.
that's how I really kind of got started and transitioned from that 20-year career into doing something different. And I really didn't even know if this was something that was going to stick. I just wanted to try.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm so glad that you're sharing your story, because to be honest, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but um you typically hear that story of, let's say a woman like is working for a job for a company, and they're overworked, they're undervalued, or like it's just always a negative thing attached to that, right? Of the reason why this person leaves their job.
Mm-hmm.
And for you was the total opposite, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had, you had a great schedule. You were working with your dad, family, and you had a great experience. But you just caught that bug that, I wanted to, you wanted to be creative.
I wanted to be passionate about what I was doing. So working with my dad, he has done this all of his life, and he was passionate. He was an analytical guy. He was a numbers guy. He loved math, all of the things that I didn't love. But I did love, like I said, what I did. I just wasn't passionate. And there was a huge difference in that. And so I was at that moment in my life where I was growing, and we all go through growth spurts, every so often we start to grow. Even as adults, you don't stop growing. And so I was at that point where I was growing and thinking to myself, this isn't where I want to be. This isn't what I'm passionate about. This isn't what wakes me up in the morning and gets me excited for the day.
Right.
It was a wonderful career to have. And I feel very fortunate that I was able to have that as long as I did. So it wasn't a case for me that was like misery. It was just a case where it was like, I'm waking up every day feeling, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah. And that's okay. My point is that it doesn't have to, like, your job doesn't have to, like, I guess, suck, right? Like you don't
Right.
have to necessarily be miserable in a job to want something more or want something different.
Exactly.
Which is, awesome. I'm glad that you had that, that great experience. And I'm sure maybe the transition was easier, right? From going from working for your dad to having your business. What was that like, that transition?
So because I was essentially self-employed for that long, I was used to being, I was used to having that flexibility. I was used to having, if you're not working, you're not being paid. So I had that mentality already. It wasn't as scary as it would be for somebody maybe who has a normal paycheck or had, benefits with their corporate company. Because I had already kind of had that experience, that part of it wasn't where the fear came in for me. So it was actually not a bad transition. I was raised in a family that were hard workers. It's what we do. My parents instilled that from a very young age. And so knowing that what you want, you have to work for, was not something that was foreign to me. So that part of it was pretty easy. The harder part came later, and still today, there's hard parts, there's scary things that happen. But the transition itself, I'm sure there was some fear, like, what if this doesn't work? So I did it part-time for 5 years. I still worked with my dad and did my everyday, and then did the furniture in between. The transition that came later was more scary, was like, okay, I'm going to stop what I'm doing now and I'm going to start doing this full time. That's where it got a little bit more scary, because it was that at that point, it's real. Like, I'm not going to get paid anymore. I'm going to let my license go for what I currently do. That part was scary.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was scary, because like how you said, you were used to something, right? And then now so you were used to, let's say, you were used to your dad making the decisions, right, for the company. You're transitioning into being your own boss, and now the decisions fall on you.
Yeah, and that's a lot of pressure. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of decisions.
Let's see. So that was one of the steps that you took from, with your transition between working, for your dad, and it took you 5 years to do part-time, and then, from there you transition into full-time. But what other steps did you take from going, from a full-time job and having, this as your side hustle, I guess, your side business, part-time for 5 years, and then going into full-time doing this? I don't know if that makes sense. Like, what was the transition like? Meaning, like, what steps did you take to make, set yourself up for like success,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
making it into a business?
So I had to decide. So my business has shifted and it's grown and it's changed actually from when I very first started it. So when I was doing it part-time, I was learning too. There was so much of a learning curve. And when I first started, a lot of what I would find is that people didn't want to share the information. So here I am really not knowing what I'm doing. I'm just literally, going on the internet, I'm Googling things, I'm trying to find out as much as I could. If I met anybody in the industry of refinishing, I would ask questions and I would get a lot of being ignored. People didn't want to share the information. Some people are threatened by sharing information. I'm not one of those people. And today that's my platform is I share. But so I ran against a lot of roadblocks in the beginning and it was really frustrating. And it was just down to like, what products are you using or what works or how do you sell your pieces and just all the things that you feel like you would need to know. So as I was learning and transitioning from going part-time, I was using that time to kind of collect. I was kind of collecting everything that I learned and figured I'd use it someday. And so kind of just putting it aside. Like if I learned something, I'd write it down. And so I just used that time and I wasn't ready yet to let go of that full-time income and the comfort. And I wasn't really sure. So I used that time to figure out if this is really something I wanted to do. When the time came and like I said, it was about 5 years in, I had decided this is what I want to do. I want to run my own business. I love helping people that don't know what they're doing. So I realized that I started to form my business and it became busier and busier. And it gave me that confidence and comfort to know you can do this, you can now get rid of the old job and go into doing your business. And so I did. I did it in 2019 is really when I made that transition. I did all the things, I got my business name, I got my business license, I started filing, all of the things that you're supposed to do. So I knew it would make me feel more serious, like this is real, I'm going to do this. So, there's so much to learn during that process. So I documented everything and I figured at one point I will use it. And I use it now to teach other people how to do it. But I used to say to my husband in the very beginning, who he has a corporate job he's had for 20 plus years, I would say to him, oh, well, I can always get a job at Target. It was kind of the joke because I'm a hard worker. So I figured if it didn't pan out, oh, well, there's something else. I never had that block as far as I can't do it. I just kind of went forward and I didn't look back.
That's awesome that, you stay focused instead of, feeding fear, right, of the unknown. But that's awesome that you stay focused and look at you now, successful and, just doing great.
Thank you.
And then, so can you share a little bit more about what your business is? I know you mentioned about refurbishing furniture and teaching. I think you mentioned something about teaching women how to do it on YouTube and things like that. But I know you're also a coach.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about your business and why did you decide to, obviously you have the passion for the furniture, but why did you decide to also coach women and teach them how to, how to do what you do?
Absolutely. So, like I said, predominantly when I started, I had no thoughts of like how this would go in the future. It was just, I'm going to refinish furniture. It's what I was passionate about. I loved doing it, seeing what it would come in and how it would go out and making people happy when they would buy it. I loved that. But that only was going to get me to a certain point. For one, age has something to do with it. So I thought to myself, gosh, am I going to be able to be 60 years old laying on the ground refinishing furniture? And so I started thinking about all of the things that I had collected and all of the challenges that I had when I first started. And I thought, if I can make this easier for people, that would be best. So I started with my YouTube channel, and I actually am kind of a shy person. I am not within my circle, but it was actually very hard for me to start that. That was probably one of the scariest things that I decided to do with my business. And I know it might sound silly to some, but being behind camera and then putting yourself out there for the world to see, that's a little scary. My husband had encouraged me, and I kept just shining it on. I'm thinking, no, I'm not doing that. Finally, after a few months, I thought, okay, I'm just going to break down and try it and see what happens. 140 videos or so later, I love my YouTube channel. And the reason that I pushed through that fear was because of all of the roadblocks that I hit. And I thought, I want to have a place for people to go, and people do want to have somewhere to go to learn. So I just started filming what I knew. And shortly after that, I decided, okay, now I'm going to take it one step further, and I'm going to teach people one-on-one. So I do virtual one-on-ones, and I have reach from here to Australia to the UK. I mean, all over. And so it's fantastic because with technology, we can do that. I used to teach in person, and I don't do that anymore. So I just do virtual lessons. And then recently I created a membership group, and so that the basis for that was being able to pull together a place where creatives could go and meet other creatives, share their successes, encourage one another, empower one another. Now I say women, and that's only because my group is full of women. Men are welcome.
Okay.
But we have about 35 women in our group. It's a fantastic group. Some people are just looking for somewhere to not only belong, but learn too at the same time. And that is what my group provides. It provides that sense of belonging and sharing and learning. And, you get a lot of the great benefits in my group too. So I have completely, shifted from just doing furniture to being able to do all of those things. And I feel so good about doing that. I also share a ton of stuff for free on my Instagram, and YouTube is obviously free. So, it's not just about me making money. Yes, I have to make money to survive, to pay my rent and my mortgage and all the things. But it's not just about that. It's my platforms were created for empowering, encouraging women to start, doing something that they're afraid to do. I have people all the time that message me that they want to get their business on social media, but they're afraid because social media, as we all know, can be a scary platform to be on in any one of them, because there's a lot of negativity that can be brought into that. And so I kind of walk people through, like, you have to push that fear aside and realize that you're there to do something. And whatever that something is, there's a reason for it. And people need to see that, and people need to hear it.
Right. And it's so amazing that this all started because, you painted your cabinets.
Yeah.
And then, you got the passion for it and you went for it. Otherwise, who will be helping the women right now?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And, my biggest thing is, again, it goes back to, I think, the beginning of how I was treated, and I didn't like it. And I can remember my husband saying, if you ever do anything with this, no matter what it is, how big or small you go, don't do that. Because I would come home and I would be so frustrated. I was like, I can't believe people won't share this. It's so dumb. I'm just asking for, something simple. I spend, and it's probably people's eyeballs go, wow. I spend hours a day on my social media platforms. I answer every comment. I answer every DM. the positive ones. But I take that time, and that's because that's the platform I want to have. It is a little overwhelming because I do spend a lot of time doing it, but not only does it make me feel good, it's the right thing to not ignore somebody. And if I'm putting myself out there to be asked and then I don't answer, that's not the kind of person that I am or that I want to be. So it's a lot of work, but I don't mind doing it.
Yeah. I try to do the same thing because I think like, okay, I don't want other women or other people to feel the same way I felt, like trying to learn something or trying to navigate, whatever it is, trying to learn something or for me, my chronic illness, because, that could feel very lonely, and very frustrating and very, like, I don't know, you have this feeling, I don't know if that's how you felt, but I feel like, kind of like a failure, in a way, like a not being able to figure some stuff out when, like, I know other people can help. Not that I'm depending on other people to help, but I think, what you're doing is great, that you're sharing what you've already learned and helping other women so they don't feel the same way you did when you were doing
Yeah,
it.
I mean, information is meant to be shared, and that's the way that I look at it. There's no reason to hold on to it. I get the question asked quite often, aren't you worried, or why do you give away this information? I've had people message me to tell me to stop making these videos, stop sharing this information. I'm not threatened. There's enough room in this world for everybody's creativity. And as a matter of fact, in my coaching membership group, I've got 5 girls that are local. So we're all doing the same thing in the same geographical area, and there's no threat there. The bottom line is there's enough room for everybody, and there's no reason to hold on to that information. It's good information. It needs to be shared for people who need to listen. I'm always going to be learning. I've learned a lot. I can share a lot. I need to learn a lot, from others. So there's always going to be somebody out there that's better, that's faster, that's smarter. So why not learn from that? And then if you are that, why not share that?
Right. And what goes around comes around, right? So if you're that kind of person that doesn't want to share, right, and keep everything to yourself, and because you're afraid that someone's going to take your business, well, I'm pretty sure at one point you're going to need help again, and no one's going to want to help you because you don't help other people.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. What you put out, you're going to get back twofold. And I think that's something that people don't think about. It's not what you get, it's what you give.
Right.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I ask this of everyone that comes in through my podcast. They come and share their stories of bravery. So what is one word, Bible verse, song, something that just keeps you going on those days that you just feel like giving up?
So something that I tell myself, and I communicate this all the time to other people, they probably get sick of hearing it, is you can't finish what you don't start. So I am a huge encourager of just start it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to look perfect to be on camera. You don't have to have the technique down. You don't even have to have all the words right. I mean, part of life is being relatable. And so people will relate to you when you aren't that perfect person 10 times over. So I always say, you can't finish what you haven't started. So you know what? Just get to it. Just start it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Even though I'm that person that sometimes feels like that, like, oh, I don't know, I'm not qualified for that. Well, guess what? You learn, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, there's people that are, I do believe there's people that are just born confident. It's just who they are. It's in their makeup. And then there's those of us that might learn that. you learn that trait. You get more confident in yourself as time goes by. And so it's not something you can fake. It's either something you have or something that you learn and you acquire. And, there's nothing wrong with not being confident in everything you're doing. You're not going to be. I mean, when you don't know something, you're not confident in it. But once you learn that something, you gain that confidence. And so I always tell people it's not something inherent that you might have, but it's something you can get.
Right. And do you think that confidence comes with pushing through the things that scare you?
Absolutely, because you and I belong to the same coaching membership group, and she teaches that fear is not the boss of you. And I absolutely agree with that. You let that dictate, you let that dictate, you're going to let that dictate your life and the choices that you make. So when you overcome that fear, you open up a whole new world. It can still be scary. I know people who speak, and every time they get on and they speak, they've got, just horrible feelings inside. They love what they do, but they're scared. Same with, I know musicians, every time they've sung the song 100 times, but they get on stage and it's that same feeling. It's that fear, it's that adrenaline, but they fight through it because they're doing something they're passionate about, and they're not letting that fear stop them.
Yeah. And I love that book, by the way.
Yes, me too. It's an excellent book. I recommend that to everyone in my group because I've read it twice, actually.
Yeah, me too. Well, I've only read it once, and it's one of like the few books that I've read from cover to cover.
It's relatable. It's very relatable. And I think that's the number one thing that people don't think about, is that we let fear stop us from moving forward. Nobody's stopping us from moving forward. We are our own decision maker, right? But it's that internal fear that makes us go, we can't do this. I do it all the time. And so I always say to people, make sure you have some sort of a support system where, if it's your husband or your sister or your uncle, it doesn't matter who it is, but everybody needs somebody in their corner, and they need somebody to remind them when we get in our own heads and there's too much fear in there, that wait a minute, this is easy. You can do this. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So lastly, where can we find you? And where can we find more of your business, follow your journey, and support your business?
Absolutely. So I'm all over the place. I'm on Instagram, and everything is under the same name. So I'm easy to find. It's all Born in a Barn Boutique. I'm on Instagram, and I'm on there daily. I always check in daily with my followers, and I'm always doing stories, sharing. So that's a really good place to capture me. I have my YouTube channel. Again, it's Born in a Barn Boutique, and you can capture all of my videos. I try to post a few a month. So right now it's kind of tough during the summer months. But yeah, so you can find me there. And then I have my website, which is borninabarnboutique.net. And there you can find all the things, whether you want to join my coaching membership group, take a lesson, look at my furniture, because I have a photo gallery there of every piece I've done. So there's many places you can reach out to me and find me. And I'm on Facebook too.
Awesome. And I'll have all those links in the description box. So go and follow her and support her business. Well, thank you so much, Kimberly, for sharing your story. And I will talk to you guys later.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me on today. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode inspired you. If you like this podcast, please share on social media and tag me on Instagram @TheBraveandHer. I would love to hear your stories of bravery.